Hey, and welcome back. In today's video, I wanted to talk about an issue that I'm having and that I think a lot of drummers out there have, and that is trying to have snare drums with a low tuning that don't detune and have the tension rods back out on you while you're playing. When you have a snare drum tuned low and one like this that has a 10-hole pattern, there's not that much tension on those rods, so they have a tendency to slip over time, but also with the abuse of playing heavy or playing rim shots. Typically, I see this happen at these bottom 3 tension rods here, right where my left hand would be smacking the snare drum on downbeats. And this is an issue I've been having a lot lately at some churches that I've been playing at, because if you know anything about modern worship music, the gushy low snare is all the rage, and the front of house guys always want it as low as possible. But I'll be 2 songs into a service, and I can already feel the tension rods totally loose where I could just turn them with my fingers. I've had the same issue in my studio as well, especially with this older Gretsch snare that I fixed up last year. It's got a 10-hole pattern, it's deeper. I like to use it for the big gushy thing when I'm tracking, but I'll be recording a song and even one take in from the beginning to the end, I can hear a pitch change in the drum, which is no bueno, especially if I want to do multiple takes and stitch things together. I know there's a lot of products out there that you can get to solve this, and the one that I decided to pick up was by Tama, these little tension rod locks, you can call them. What I like about these is, 1, you could buy a 10-pack for like $14 on Sweetwater, and then 2, when they seat on the tension rod, you can actually still take your key and turn it if you want, and it's not going to damage or break these, and it should work pretty well. They also have this little elastic ring in here, which is supposed to help keep it in place on the tension rod beyond just the top where gravity would take care of that, but if you wanted to use it on the bottom head, which I don't know if I would need because generally I keep my bottom heads pretty high tuned, but a nice thought, and if that works, that's great. So what I want to do is just a quick little test with this drum because this is the main culprit of it in my studio. So I'm going to play for 5 minutes at what I consider to be a medium low tuning. And then I'm going to come back and listen to how much the pitch has changed, if at all. And then we're going to do the same thing with the Tama tension rod locks put on here. Now, just as a disclaimer, because I know there are plenty of you out here who are super uptight about TuneBot settings and having everything be perfect, that's not how I do things. So I'm just going to do it by ear and try to start with a good sound, go back and listen and see how much change we have. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so without even going back and listening to it, I could just feel so much pitch change from the beginning where I was playing to where at the end it was just sounded like it didn't even have any tension. And honestly, I can feel it in this head. There's a little bit of waviness to the Mylar here. So my way of kind of testing tension beyond what I'm hearing is really with feel with the drum key. So if I go around, the one closest to me at the bottom was totally loose and just dangling around, along with the one next to it. 2 up from that have a little bit of tension, but I'm sure it's less than where I started. Where I got up to kind of halfway, let's say 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, the one at 3 o'clock was loose, but the one at 9 o'clock was not as loose. So that's kind of weird. Maybe if I was doing cross sticks, that would be a factor, but kind of surprised that was a factor here. And then up at the top, as suspected, these still feel pretty good. So just by adjusting these few that were looser back up, especially this one here where I play all the rim shots, yeah, that's probably close to where I started. I know someone in the comments is going to roast me and tell me how they checked it with their TuneBot and it was 482 before and now it's 473. I'm not really worried about that. So, these Tama Tension Rod locks. From my understanding, you might only need a few at the spots where the drum is most vulnerable to slipping out. But since this is a 10-lug drum and I bought a 10-pack, I'm just going to throw it on all 10 of them with the hopes of getting the best result. All right, so there we go. Now it's set on all the tension rods. If I play, still sounds the same. And the great part about these is I can actually take, but I can do that without removing them. When I'm filling in at some church that I don't play it a lot, if the drum slips out, I usually just try to crank that one up because it's in the middle of a song and maybe we're at the bridge and I'm trying to just make it feel good. But it'd be nice to have these here where I wouldn't have to take them off to do that. The sound is one thing, but I'm listening through in-ear monitors. I'm listening to the microphones from front of house with all the process and compression effects. So I don't notice it as much sonically when I'm playing. The thing that it does is when a head loosens up like that, I can't play a buzz roll or get any sort of nice response from the drum, which really limits what I can do musically. We played for 5 minutes and I felt like the pitch went down like an octave or something crazy like that. That's not sustainable for tracking in a studio where everything is done at a really detailed level. So, same test, now with the tension rod locks. We're gonna see how much it backs out, if at all. Well, there it is. Without going back and listening to the mix here and comparing on a more microscopic level, it definitely held its tune drastically better than before. And I know that some of you probably think my tuning job sounds like crap. What I will say is I'm trying to do this quickly for the video, and I wanted something controlled to compare with, meaning I didn't want to use muffling or other tricks that I would use to help get a nice drum sound. I wanted the drum to be open and resonant so that we could have the best comparison of how just putting these on the tension rods affects everything with no other variables involved. I really like this. I think it's going to work well for me. I might even buy a few more sets of these just to have around in the studio because I have a few other drums back here that are mostly used in lower tunings where these tension rods are a little more vulnerable to slipping out. And I might even just bring some to these churches where I play regularly where it's happening all the time. There's a few other ways to get a low snare sound without having these sort of issues. One would be using a product like the Big Fat Snare Drum, right? The one that covers the entire head. It sounds great, but when it comes to response and feel, I can't even roll with those. I like to use the one that's called Steve's Donut, where it's a large perimeter ring and then the center is cut out, because that way where I'm actually playing, I still get a good sound. Let me know in the comments what you think of these little tension rod locks and if you've used something like this yourself. And I'll have an affiliate link down to Sweetwater if you want to pick these up, and that's a great way to support my channel with no added cost added to you. Thanks for watching. See you around on the next one. Bye.